Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. I'm Greg Chris, along with my great friend Frank Fear. We got another good show we think coming tonight. Frank, welcome in, and looking forward to this show. Um, and as we get started, of course, we want to take just a moment to remember one of our colleagues, one of the guys that was so instrumental in helping us keep this thing together and put this show on. Of course, we're talking about Mike Dunlap. Mike, our great friend, uh, battled for a long time with different illnesses and a variety of problems and health problems. He succumbed to those this past week, and we are, Frank, as I sat back and reflected on this, so saddened by the loss of Mike because I love talking to him. We talked on the phone probably once, twice a week, and but at the same time, understand that he had gone through so much. What a fighter, and just wasn't able to win this battle this last time. But you kind of relieved in the sense that he's not suffering anymore because he had some tremendous health issues and just overcame one after another, and fought so hard to keep on going. And we want to remember Mike tonight and send our thoughts to his family and all his friends around not only the state of West Virginia, but around the country. And Mountaineer land especially, he was extremely well known and loved by everybody that knew him.
That's absolutely correct. Boy, I'll tell you, when I think of Mike, all I think of is joy. All the interactions that we had together were so joyful. You know as well as I, you can't throw around the term true mountaineer.
Yeah.
It cheapens it. But Mike was a true mountaineer,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
loved by all. Incredibly networked. His network was phenomenal. He reached out to me about 2 years ago, I think, and we developed a very solid friendship. And as you mentioned, along with Mark Parsons,
Right.
he helped us. He was an assistant producer here. He helped us, not only helped us, he was a co-host on the pre and post shows during the 24 season before his health really took a significant turn. And we certainly want to send out our love and condolences to Connie, his mother, and Joan, his spouse, and all his friends. Cliff Hill, who's a close relative. And both of us were looking over his resume today. And here's a guy that, back in the day, we're talking about early to mid 80s, was a 300-pound lineman with speed. I mean, with speed. He was recruited not only by West Virginia, Notre Dame, big schools all over the country recruited him. And we were talking before the show with tonight's guest, Grantis that Mike told me once that one of the things that really helped him grow up was when he was named West Virginia High School Player of the Year and went up to the Morgantown Touchdown Club to basically get his award. And I'm not too sure he knew he had to speak, but they turned to him and he got up, and I can relate to it because I went through the same experiences. Even if you don't have anything prepared, you grow up fast and you speak from the heart, and that's what Mike did, and he did everything from the heart. And God, he's a good friend. And as Darren put up, the services will be the Saturday the 28th in Ravenswood. There's the information right there at Rush Funeral Home. Visitation from 11 to 2 with a celebration of life at 2. I'm going to try my darndest to get there. We have a house closing the day before, and I have to be here to sign the papers, but we're going to see if I can get up there by plane and be with the family. It's just, going over his resume here is just an amazing top 100 in Street and Smith, captain of the North-South football game when he was a senior. All the things. He played basketball and football. College lineman, 1986, in the top 20, recruited by WVU, Notre Dame, South Carolina. And then he graduated from the Newport News Shipbuilding Apprenticeship Program and worked there for a number of years. Unfortunately, had a industrial accident in 2015 and had to retire, but we were all the beneficiaries of that because after we retired from full-time work, Greg and you and I were prime in that regard. He
Yeah.
just he just befriended us and
Yeah.
sustained that friendship.
Yep. It's funny when you mentioned his networking and the joy he brought. When I was working in Morgantown and was still doing my show, he called me one day, and we were just talking back and forth, and he was always trying to find me guests, and he said, "You ever heard of Roy Firestone?" And I'm like, "The ESPN guy?" He's like, "Yeah, oh yeah, I've heard of Roy Firestone." Oh, well, I was gonna say if you want him on your show, I talk to him pretty often. I said you talk to Roy Firestone pretty often. Now a lot of younger guys won't know who Roy Firestone is. He was one of the early on ESPN guys and very famous. And I said, "Yeah, Mike, I know Roy." And then a couple of days later, he calls back and he said, "Hey, I meant to ask you about another guy. If you've ever heard him, you ever heard of Denny McLean?" And I'm like, "The baseball pitcher?" Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I talked to him yesterday, and I'm thinking, who do you not talk to? Yeah, so we laughed, and he said, "Oh, I know a little bit of everybody." I was like, "My
Yeah,
gosh!" I said, "That's not even in the Mountaineer realm. He's out here in Major League Baseball and
yeah,
ESPN." But yeah, it was always a highlight of the day to talk to Mike. So we'll
that's
we'll
right.
we'll truly miss him, and
Yeah,
but knowing Mike as I know him, he
yeah,
would want us to get on with the show and talk Mountaineer sports, and I know that's what he would want us to do. And Frank, as I thought about uh, today's show, uh, the theme just keeps repeating itself, and that is we have another Mountaineer, and we're always amazed at the things they accomplish after their time at WVU is finished. And this guy here is uh, you know right into the mold, and another guy that has done accomplished wonderful things after his time at WVU. And folks my age, that was back in my heyday when he played. I loved watching him play, and I didn't realize. Well, it's been a few years back that I was watching a game on TV, an NFL game, and I'm like, did I hear him say Grantis Bell? So I'm starting looking him up. I'm Googling, and sure enough, there he is, and wearing a stripe. He went to the other side. I was like, okay, good deal. Anyway, enough of that blabber. We are tickled to death to have with us tonight former Mountaineer great and now NFL official Grantis Bell. Grantis, welcome to the show. We appreciate you coming in.
Oh man, thank you guys. Thank you for that. Good hearing about Mike and the memories of him. Glad you guys had the opportunity to get to know him as well as you did. That was good to hear, and just prayers to him and his family and to all of his friends and
Absolutely.
like you said, across the world, so across the country.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, thank you for that introduction, and just excited to be here and ready to rock and roll.
All right. Well, I got two hard edge hitting questions right off the bat, and I'm gonna ask them. I'm gonna ask them together, and then you can answer them as you see fit. First one is: does the NFL Officials Association now have a weightlifting group that you all are required to attend because all of you are jacked? Even you guys that are my age are jacked. I look like a little fat dumpling, and I watch these NFL referees, and they come out and they got these guns, and they're giving these signals, and all of them like they don't just say first down. They got to get out there and jack that arm a few times, let that muscle pop out. First down. And the other one is you're an official, and I'd like for you to tell people why. I was a coach for 30 years, and I want you to just tell folks why, starting at a young age, they need to get into officiating. A little more serious note. I'll
Gotcha,
turn it over to you.
gotcha. So we don't have a weightlifting club. I'll say that, but we do. You wanna look the part. I think
There you
it's
go.
it's a level of respect that you earn from the players when they feel like, from a fitness standpoint, that you look the part. So we wanna make sure we look the part. So, um, but we'll work on that weightlifting club just in case we all need it. Um, and then really, so it's interesting because I was a high school coach, head football coach down here in South Florida for for 5 years before I even after that, I wavered on whether or not I wanted to do it. And so it was, so the NFL had a kind of like an officiating clinic for former players. So, um, I had a brief little stint in the NFL, basically practice squad guy, but I was there for a couple years. And so we got these notices, and I end up going, and you just hear these officials talk about the amount of money and the excitement and the travel and things of that nature and how it benefits their family. Um, you just hear them talk about that. And then they break us all down and they say, so what you got to do from this point on, you got to go back to your local associations and probably start with the little league program and work your way up. And honestly, it was 10 of us, and when we all were there, we literally thought that since we were former players, that they were bringing us in to train us and put us in the NFL. None of us had no idea what the process was. But I took it as challenge accepted. I think out of those 10, two of us actually decided to go back and give it a shot. So literally came back and started with Little League program. Now the progression was pretty quick because I understood the game and still had that athleticism in me. So it's just like recruiting. They come and they watch and they see you see a good looking wide receiver, 6'1", 6'2", running 4.3 and catching everything. Well, same thing for officials. You see a guy that can run, can move, is agile. They figure that they can kind of groom you for the mechanics and teach you how to kind of make the right call when you need to make it. So that's literally how it all got started. And thank the Lord each and every day for this opportunity. And it's just been a blessing for me, a blessing for my family. But most of all, it has been extremely fun and challenging.
Well, I'm sure one good thing I guess you guys probably think about is if your name is not thrown out there a whole lot, that's probably a good thing as an official. So you don't, if you're not being noticed a lot, then that's a good thing. But yeah, I know we're all human, and I always think, of course, everybody wants to criticize the officials, and in my days coaching, I did the same thing. But what a tough job! First of all, what a tough job. And I mean, you're only going to make half the people happy all the time, and sometimes not even that. But I would think I always wondered, especially at the NFL level and the college level, when you're out there officiating, and it's Michigan, Ohio State, or Cleveland, Pittsburgh, or whoever it might be playing football, and the crowd, there's 70,000 people. It's uh, you know, do you hear all that noise and feel the pressure of the call, or are you just zoned in and focused on your area, what you're supposed to be, looking at and making that call as you see it, obviously. But do you ever feel that outside noise and interference coming in?
Greg, that's a great question. It's just like being a player. Like I'm going to say the majority of the officials, like we want to be in that raudacious atmosphere with 75, 80,
Oh yeah,
100,000 people, loud screaming. We want to be in those situations. Like that's what we're groomed for. So you look forward to it. It's just like being a player, in West Virginia when it's West Virginia Pitt or West Virginia Penn State or whatever, like versus West Virginia Bowling Green. Not to knock Bowling
right.
Green, but there was just a level of excitement that comes with those type games. But in the NFL, it's week in and week out. Like you know you can't take a week off. Like
Right.
it's those guys, they're hungry for a win regardless of what their record is. So but we want those. We hear, like, you can hear the noise, you can feel the tension in the air. You can't hear yourself think. just like the quarterbacks, of the visiting team who are trying to, change a play at the line of scrimmage, and it just gets louder. Like, we come on from time to time. We're like, man, it's loud in here, guys. You got to talk up. I can't hear you because we have communication systems, but sometimes
Right.
we can't hear what's going on. So we got to
Right.
rely on our trusted mechanics.
Right. And I know there's some things we can't talk about or don't necessarily want to, but I'm wondering if, like, when you get scheduled for your games, is that do you have a specific crew that you're with all year long?
So typically you're with the same crew the whole year. Um, so the crew that I worked with this year, this was my first year with that crew. So I'm going into year 7. So my 6 years in, my first year I had one crew. That was the COVID year. That was my first year. So that was one crew. And then the next 3 years I had the same crew. And then fifth year I had a different crew. And then last year I had a different crew. So it just depends. They mix and match the crews, but generally it's the same crew the entire year. You do get switched out from time to time because depending on the number of officials. So there's 121 officials, but we generally have like 2 guys that float. So if there's an extra back judge or an extra umpire, they'll float those guys in. So they still going to get the number of games that the league is going to give you. So sometimes you are floated off a crew because the guys floated in, but typically it's the same crew all year, and
And
that's great to have.
yeah, and I know you don't do this, but the scheduling part of it, not to go into any details, but are there certain things that they're looked at prior to scheduling you to a game, or do they just is it kind of random, or are there other details that go into it?
Not sure all the things that go into it, but one of the things that some guys have big time jobs or jobs that may um, have partnership with a particular team. So the NFL, they know that, so they'll remove that official off that game and replace it with somebody else. And then with scheduling, like we go any and everywhere. It's not a certain region of the country. We go anywhere they send us. So which is a great thing because you don't want to just be in a certain area because now it's just too much riding on that situation. But
Right.
literally we go anywhere, and but there's little things here and there that can move a crew or move an official to a different game and sub someone
Gotcha.
else in.
Gotcha. I just I always wonder if I thought myself an official would be sitting around. I don't know if you've ever done this or not, but you get that call and say, call your partners up. Shit, man, we got to go to Buffalo, and it's January the 15th. Yeah, why can't they send us to Miami?
That happened. So I had Buffalo the last game of the season this
Oh
year,
gosh.
and but it wasn't too bad. It was I think it was mid 20s. It was
Yeah, yeah,
so but it was the nostalgia. That's the last game in that stadium.
right.
So being able to work the last game in that stadium was pretty cool because that was an absolute crazy atmosphere.
I bet.
But yeah, we do listen as the season goes on and you start getting, whatever you get Chicago week 1 and you're like, oh man, you don't want to get Chicago week 1. You want to get Chicago maybe middle of the season. You get a
Right.
middle of the season, chances of going back are probably pretty slim. But when you get them early, we're always thinking about um, those December, January games.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Frank, I'll let you jump in there again. I won't take all the time up, but I helped to close down Cleveland Municipal Stadium. I worked that game, last game at Municipal Stadium, but I was in the bleachers working it. So Frank, jump on in there.
Great. Well, I just want to say this to begin with. I mean, as we watch, in fact, one of the great things, Grantis, you may know this. You're doing the games, but I think this is the first season that ESPN, the app, actually during the game will have the names of the officials position by position at the bottom. So each week I look for your name and I wonder where Grantis is going to be this year. And a couple of times I was able in my market to watch the game you were on. And another comment I'll make before I ask my question: a lot of us watching from a distance know just how well organized and structured the NFL is, and we had a little experience of that with getting you on the show, interacting with one of the vice presidents, the office of one of the vice presidents. And there's only a certain window when referees are available. It's after the season is over. We actually wanted to have Grantis on last year, but we missed the window. But very impressive in terms of how the NFL does its business. But getting into the specifics here, because a lot of us know the titles, but if you could say a bit about the roles. For example, what's the difference between a field judge and the responsibilities a field judge has and a back judge? Which one are you? And talk to us about those roles and responsibilities of just those two positions so we get a better feel.
Okay. And I'll try to make it simple. So there used to be a time in our game where officials wouldn't necessarily fish in another official's pond per se. So now we're in a time where if we see a foul on the field, we want to put a flag down. So the field judge and side judge, they are back deep behind the defense with the back judge. We're generally 25 to 30 yards deep, but we all have different responsibilities. So anything from I'm looking at defensive linemen holding offensive linemen getting to the next level. They're looking at offensive linemen holding defensive guys trying to get to the ball carrier, things of that nature. But we all transition to basically the same thing. I couldn't really decipher what's different other than the initial look that we get at the beginning of a play, because once that play starts, we're all transitioning to different areas on the field. So we like to think that we have every area covered on the field, and it's designed that way. If we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing at the particular time, we do have every area covered, but it's just like anything else. Every now and then, there's going to be a blind spot. So we try to decrease or minimize the opportunity for that blind spot by having great mechanics. But we all pretty much do the same thing. We're just stationed differently, and we have different responsibilities when that play initially starts or right before that play starts. But when that play starts, Frank, it's just fair game.
That's a good explanation. And you guys are craftspeople. There's no question about that. You wouldn't be at that level if you weren't the best of the best. And the game has so much integrity. And, we've had issues with the NBA in the past, but it's just an incredible work. But, one of the other things, if we can talk about transitioning, you're sitting there with this flying WV on your shirt because you were a hell of a player at West Virginia.
Appreciate that.
41 games from 84 to 88, mostly 85, 86, 87, 88. 1,000 yards, mostly as a wide receiver. I'm laughing because I did a fearism here, Greg. I put up the graphic for this week and got a text from Grantis, and he said, "Hey, Frank, I wasn't a running back. I was a wide receiver." And I'll tell you the backstory. What we always do is when I put the graphics up for this week's guest, I do the graphics for next week's guest. Well, our next week's guest is Jock Sanders. And so I'm thinking running back. Well, obviously you weren't, but you did have rushing yards. And you had some. Let me just start with this and we'll kick it to Greg. To be a Mountaineer, who were you recruited by? Why did you end up at West Virginia? Your exciting games, all the exciting things. And as Craig said, you're another example of a Mountaineer that we're all proud of because you not only excelled during the time you were in Morgantown, but clearly since you graduated.
Man, yeah. I mean, it all started with Doc Holliday. So Doc came down to South Florida and pulled myself, Andre Johnson, Calvin Phillips, Robert White, Robert Pickett, pulled us out of South Florida, Andrew Jones, and got us up to Morgantown. And um, a lot of people don't know, but I walked on. Those guys were scholarship guys. I walked on. I ended up being kind of a last minute addition. And, I got there and Coach Nealon, you know, absolute best. Coach Nealon pulled me in the office and said, listen, you're doing, things open up for you. We're gonna honor you and give you a scholarship. And he didn't waver on that. I think the second or third day, guy left and bam, there goes a scholarship. So it all started with Doc Holliday. And as you know, Doc Holliday was a serious recruiter in Florida. And people may have different ideas of Doc, and he ended up going to Marshall, for a time. But Doc is the reason that we went there, and so I talked with Doc Holliday. We talked with him, I don't know, a few months ago. So there's a bond there, but Doc Holliday is the reason why we got there. And if I had to do it all over again, Frank, I'd do it the exact same way. Nothing different. Nothing different.
We hear that often, don't we? They say once they go, they stay, and they wouldn't change it for anything. Man, you mentioned a list of players there, that incredible players you just reeled off from that area. Do you, looking back, I know you have tons of memories from your time at WVU, but any particular memories, games stand out in your mind?
Oh gosh. I mean, so my first and last game as a Mountaineer, not first, but my first, yeah, it will be my first, Louisville in '85. I caught my first touchdown from John Talley because John was playing quarterback.
Yeah.
And then my last game as a Mountaineer, we're playing Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, and I catch my last touchdown from Major Harris. So you talk about
Yeah.
two different times, right? But man, I just remember, freshman year when we're all redshirted and we beat Penn State. I think it was 17-14. I think we beat Penn State. Just that whole atmosphere kind of fueled a little bit of the fire. And then I remember every year, if we beat Maryland, we would end up having a great season. If we lost to Maryland,
Yep.
it wasn't going to happen.
Yep.
And it literally worked that way every year. So that was always an indication for me. Some of the things that, coming up in 2 days in Morgantown, and we're the only ones on campus. That was rough coming from South Florida. That's a real good memory. It softened up the more years that I stayed, but man, initially, it was rough. But that obviously the '88 season is the highlight of my time there, and I'm pretty sure I know the senior guys that were part of that group. We felt really good about what we had. We remember playing in the Sun Bowl in '87 and losing in the Sun Bowl. And I remember there was talk about Coach Nealon. People were courting him to go other places. I think it was Ohio State, a few other places, and he came in after the game. These guys like, I'm not going anywhere. And we knew then, we were like, okay, we knew we were going to be good because we looked at who was leaving and who was staying, and we had a ton of guys staying. So that '88 season is just something unreal. The fans in West Virginia, walking around West Virginia, and that season was just absolutely amazing. I think we all wore our West Virginia football jackets every single day because we were greeted and treated, like kings that year. Not that we weren't in previous years, but that year was just special. So just to hear, people in a store or McDonald's or walking in the lair or walking in class, we would walk in class. I remember walking some of my classes and after games and people are just clapping, so, but that 88 season, nothing like it. Like that was just the greatest time, that we had.
Yeah, that was a magical time for sure. And Frank will hear this and laugh, but you opened up a wound for me, and I have to ask you, an old wound. I've talked to Major about this. I talked to Coach Nealon about this. Let's go back to the Sun Bowl. Obviously, you know a ton about football, for obvious reasons. You got a quarterback named Major Harris. You're going for two to win the game, 3 yards out. What's your play call going to be?
Whatever play they call was the play call.
I can't get an answer, Frank. Nobody's going to say it.
I just never.
I told
I tell you, Grantis, you set Greg right up for that because he asked that same question. He's asked that multiple times to Major. I was and everybody gives the same answer.
That's right. Nobody okay, will they?
Whatever play they call, that was the right one.
I told Coach Nealon, I said, I've been a coach. I said, I'm no coach like you, but I said, if I'd have been a coach, I'd have just said, Major, go get us 3 yards and get that 2 points, baby. That's all we need.
That was. I tell you what, that was a heck of a game. That was a heck of a game.
I was there. I went to that game. That's why I have that wound I can't get rid of.
There were some studs in that game. You had Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders on the other side, and Hartley Dykes. And that was Mike Gundy.
Yeah.
Quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure was. Yeah. Sure was. Yeah.
Grantis, if I could get in here, let me just say this. I was not at WVU at that time. My wife and I are alums, but we were there earlier. And so what I'm going to share now is what I've heard. It's been repeated many, many times by many different folks. And it's always along the same, just like Greg gets the same answer to what would you run? It's the same answer to this thing. And that is, there's something about the football team, those 1980 players. You mentioned, being at Kegler's, and when you look at those reunions with the players, they're always populated, not exclusively, but a lot of 1980 players. Major, for example, Boom Smalls, and so on and so forth. And I just finished a book on Darryl Prue, who was a basketball player during those years, and he and the basketball players talk about how important it was for them to have relationships with the football players and how much they benefited by having guys like you and Major and Freddie and others around during those years.
Yeah, it was great. Like we I remember I talked with Darryl, I think it was last year we were at a game and we just talked about how much respect we had for each other. They would be at our games, and then basketball season, we'd be at their games. We would go to the women's games as well. Like we wanted to support West Virginia athletics all together, but the basketball team, man, we just had a great relationship. I don't know why it ended up being that way. I think part of it, God rest his soul, part of it is Coach Ford, making sure that we all know that this is bigger than just yourself. It's a community, and we all got a vibe for this community. So, but yeah, Darryl, we talk about Darryl all the time. We just remember Darryl coming in. We're like, who is this dude coming in with all this high praise? And all of a sudden, we just sit around towers and, play cards and just have a great time. So it was a great level of respect for those guys, and just truly, it's great to see them every time we get to see them.
Yeah, and to think it's 40 years, and to see the love, really, the love, respect, support is so critical. And, and what's amazing too, or probably not amazing, it's probably very much an explanation that there was a lot of winning during those 2 years. When you think of the head basketball coach, the head football coach, those two guys they're the longest serving and the winningest coaches in their sport in WVU history, and they were both there literally during the same years. It all fit together.
Yeah, it did. It did. I remember um, Coach Catlett and Coach Nealon coming down to South Florida for whatever the South Florida alumni. So, like it would be absolutely packed in there. Um, so I guess now I've heard something like Coach's Caravan.
Yeah.
Um, so it would be something like that. But man, it was something like it was West Virginia is well respected. Um, I was just amazed at how much or how big of a um, alumni group was down in this area. So I remember, and Coach Catlett whenever he had an opportunity, if he had something to say to us, he would say it, and vice versa. I'm pretty sure Coach Nealon did the same thing for his players as well. So just a mutual respect. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Grantis, I got to ask you now, after being on this show, of course, it's going to be impossible not to be, but do you get recognized when you go out?
There you go.
Probably more so now that I'm on this show.
I was going to say, you can't avoid it now. Millions and millions are going to see you now, so they know you now.
But yeah, no, not really. Not really. Even when I come back to Morgantown, like it's rare. It's rare that somebody would know. I think so. I have a son that's there. That's
Right.
on the team right now.
Right.
And I remember at the spring game last year, he's signing autographs, and I'm standing next to him, and a guy finally came up. He goes, "Wait a minute, are you Grantis Bell?" So it's rare. It's rare. Every now and then you'll get someone that they'll be sitting there and they'll be looking at it like, "Man, I've seen you somewhere before." I'm like, "Yeah, you sure?" And I'm like, "No, I've seen you somewhere before." And then you get to talking, and then finally they'll pull it out of me. I was like, "Yeah, well, I'm an NFL back there." He goes, "That's where I've seen you." I'm like, "No, you ain't that. You may have thought you saw me, but you really didn't see me."
Grantis, that's where basketball players have a hell of an advantage 30 years later, because a guy comes walking in and he's 6'9".
Yes.
When did you play? The first question.
Right.
Because,
exactly.
Well, and the football players always had helmets on. So, from our experience in Keglers, there were several very well-known football players sitting right in there that we didn't know because
exactly
we didn't know what they looked like. They need to put their helmets on and their numbers so we knew what they were.
So true.
I was just curious. I know, I guess probably if I would see, there's a few of them you see pretty regular on TV and in our area, so I'll probably know them. But most of them probably, most people wouldn't know the official's face unless you had your shirt and your hat on. They might recognize you then and say, "Hey."
A lot of them know the referees, the head referee. They some of those guys they know, like some of them. Like they know, like they, usually when we get to a city, and we go out to dinner, and they're like, you could tell that it's starting to, it's running in their mind, like, oh, those are the officials. So, but those the head referees they're noticed.
Well, if you think about it, other than the coaches, and the announcers, they're getting the most airtime.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they make the call, so the camera's right on them all the time. So yeah, I'm sure that is maybe that's why they all get jacked up. They might have to fend somebody off every now and then.
That's right. Greg, with Grantis brought this up. We can't finish the show. We've got some time left, but without having you talk about number 37, Jaden Bell. You've got a son on the team. Yep. Nice transition, Greg, to asking, getting Grantis's take on the Mountaineers, but especially because he's got a son on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my son. Listen, I'm super, super, super proud of my son. My son, he walked on. He's a walk-on there, and he has literally grinded his way. He's doing excellent academically. I'm really proud about that. So That's my dog barking back there. But I'm really proud about that. But he's growing, learning each and every year. I'm hoping that this year is going to be the year that he finally, breaks rank and gets a lot of playing time, gets some playing time. But I know that, so he survived Coach Brown, and Rich coming in and didn't, I didn't play okay, Rich, we played together. So I expect you to kind of treat Jaden differently. No, he earned it. Jaden, he has literally earned where he's at right now. So just excited for him and excited for what his future holds. But again, like I said, doing great academically. So we'll leave that at that. And then as far as the team, I live through him. So when West Virginia wins or loses, I'm thinking about my son first, and then I think about Mountaineer Nation and how everybody's feeling. Really, it's more so it's my son, my former teammates, and then Mountaineer Nation. So I just think Rich obviously has a plan. He's done it once before. I remember a long time ago. Rich probably won't remember this, but I remember when he was there before. I got an opportunity to speak with him once he left, and I was like, man, if you never left West Virginia, you probably have 4 or 5 national championships by now, because they were they were pretty good back when he had them the first time. But I'm hoping that it gets back to that. I think this transfer portal that's a different beast. It's different. That's different than what we had. So we had guys that would come in 20, 25 guys that would come in that would stay for 3, 4 years. Didn't mind the competition. So now it's just a different beast. And I imagine that's a huge challenge for Rich and his coaching staff.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot on here and how hard it must be to be, a head coach now, dealing with all those types of things and NIL and transfer portal and all that. And we've talked about it enough. Hopefully, it gets something straightened out in the end, to where it's not the Wild West like it is now. But yeah, tough spot to be in. But I think he's going to do just fine. I have all the faith in the world, and if anybody can do it, he can, I'm sure. Do you make it back? I know with your schedule going on Sundays, it's probably hard to get back to many games, is it?
Yeah, what was so odd about last year, and I had 2 sons. My oldest son initially started at University of UConn, played at UConn, and then ended up transferring to Marshall. He was at Marshall for a year, and then he transferred to Albany. And my oldest son, he had some injuries. But I remember last year, Jaden and my oldest son, Miles, they were off the same weekends that I was off.
Oh, yeah.
So that wasn't good. And then, but I think we came up for the first week, that opening game, we came up there for that. And then that was it for the season. So hopefully schedules line up this year that we're able to get up for a couple games, and it'd be great for me to have a Pittsburgh game while there's a game in Morgantown that weekend. That would be great, but we'll see if those schedule people align that up.
Yeah, well, hopefully the schedule people are watching. They can hear that. Take care of Grantis. Do you work? I know we hear a lot of discussion about officials going full time, that sort of thing. What do you do outside of officiating? Do you have another profession that you do outside of the game?
Yeah, so I work in education. I've been a school counselor for several years. This is year 32 in education for me, but I work at Florida Atlantic has a high school. It's called Florida Atlantic University High School. And I've been working there for the last few years, and it's a blessing being able to work with young people who are motivated, focused, dialed in on what they want to do ultimately. So We have a great school. It's a great vibe, and but I've been in education for 32 years,
Awesome.
so
Awesome.
I truly, truly, truly enjoy that. Um, and there are so many students that I've worked with. Matter of fact, like the person that comes and does my yard is a former kid of mine. The person that redid my roof played for me at my previous high school. The person that cut my boys' hair, and they were former students at the school. So a lot of people, you kind of keep those people in mind and grow with them. So it's good. It's good but it's been a great profession. I love it.
Yep, we had I had this discussion with another teacher friend of mine the other day. I taught school for 32 years. He taught high school and then was a college professor, much like Frank. But we talked about how every time I go into a restaurant, I pray and hope that the cook, who I know I had in school at some point, got an A in class or at least passed or at least likes me. So yeah, you see that. Yeah,
Good
and
stuff. Yes.
yeah, oh yeah, you see them everywhere. They're all over, and well, that's fantastic, and credit to you as well. Do you see the officials going full time anytime in the near future?
Hard to, I know we were in the final year of our contract, so that's up for renewal. So depends on what happens with that. But who knows? Who knows? I think that's that's hard. Put it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
It's hard. So, um, but we'll see what comes up of this new collective bargaining. Hopefully, it goes smoothly and ends with all parties
yeah.
getting what they want and need it.
Well, I think we, I think as fans, we all saw what can happen uh, when the officials aren't there. The year we had the substitute officials was that was horrendous. So I
You
hope
know, you know,
we
one of the
get.
things, one of the things that I think people don't really understand or don't really know about officials uh, is the amount of work that goes into it. So some just think that you show up on, a Saturday or a Sunday and work the game, but that entire week is in preparation. So we're looking at plays, scouting, trying to pick up teams' tendencies. So you have to have one, you know, a supporting family. Um, my wife and I, we've been married for coming up here on 29 years, and um, literally has to be a rock bed level of support that allows you to do this career in officiating because we're gone so much. Um, I missed many of my boys' little league games and missed their high school games. Um, so, but there's a level of preparation that comes with this that I think people don't really realize. So it's 3 4 hour nights where you're watching film, getting prepared, taking notes, understanding what each team is doing, so that when you get out there on a Saturday or a Sunday, you're ready to go. So I just want to make sure I mention that because I want people to know that it's not just something that we just show up. It's there's tons of preparation. There's tons of preparation in the off season. We start in May when we start going over rules, and we 300 600 question rules tests that we're constantly going over as groups. And again, taking time away from family to make sure we're perfecting our craft. So there's a lot that goes into it. So it's not something that we always say, if everybody could do it, it wouldn't be as gratifying. So for the 121 that do it, at least in our league, and then the thousands of others throughout college and throughout high school and little league, it's the preparation that really, really gets you ready for the game.
Yeah, yeah, and I can see that. I think as like I said, as a former coach, I coached for 30 years, and as I got older, the level of respect for the officials grew, and by the time I quit, I really realized what these guys put into it. Here on a local level, that officiate the high school games and the middle school games and the little league games and all those. It's not something for everybody, and a lot of work goes into it, and a lot of these guys that maybe not that I didn't respect them before, but my respect grew after realizing how good they had become and how much I realized they had worked on it and worked at getting better. So I think as you get older, I think people tend to realize that. I was going to ask you about your former students. I hear a lot of stories that things that I'd forgotten that they'll remind me of that I said or we did in class or we did in practice or whatever. Do they razz you any and come in on Monday and say, "Hey, Mr. Bell, man, you blew that one there, man. You had to call a game and blew it." You ever catch any razzing from any of
They, and believe it or not, they actually stay away from that.
them?
Um,
Frank
and
the same thing.
a lot of them are they're looking. Um, I may get it from a teacher, but the students they tend to stay away from it. They'll just come in and say, "Oh, Mr. Bell, we saw you on TV."
Yeah.
Um, they generally stay away from asking um, those hard questions. Put it that way. And what's so interesting is West Virginia. So that's where I started my college football career uh, um, in officiating. So I would come up. It was the WVU, which is now something different, but
Yeah.
so I
Out in the east now. Yeah.
yeah I worked in the WVU for 2 years and really really got my feet wet and just kind of blossomed from there. So not only did was I able to have a really good college football career but it's where I started my football officiating in college.
That's awesome. Awesome. Frank, I have a sneaking suspicion that somewhere along the line, one of the good old boys in the school got word, Mr. Bell, you say something about his game, he might have to take you out. So watch what you say.
I
Frank, you
could
want
thre-
to finish up?
I can threaten them with graduation. Hey, all
Yeah,
right now, might be
there you go.
missing a class.
Hey, we're not gonna get these papers filled out in time. That's right.
Yeah.
Frank, you want to finish things up here? We're running
Well,
back on
yeah.
time as always. It goes by
This
fast.
is just this is something we've waited a long time for, Grantis.
Oh
And,
yeah.
it's really been a joy, and we appreciate so much you taking time to do this. And as we said many times before, you talked about Doc and how great a recruiter he was. And, our experience just, and you just reinforce it, is that they weren't just recruiting football players and great athletes, they were recruiting great people. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that Greg and I, and unfortunately Mickey Plumley couldn't be here tonight, but, that's one of the joys of doing this show is rekindling relationships we've had and meeting new folks like yourself who just shed such a shining light on West Virginia and make us, as alums, make us proud.
Well, listen, I appreciate the opportunity, Greg and Frank. Like it's always good to reminisce about the days in West Virginia. So many people to at least back when I was there that had such an impact um, on my life, and Coach Nealon being having the greatest impact, So, um, West Virginia will always have that special place. It's even sweeter that I have a son there, and just kind of allowing him to go through that whole process and see what kind of special place it can be or that it is. But I appreciate really the opportunity to come on. Um, and yeah, Frank, the NFL, it has to be a certain time. So we're going to protect that shield when it needs to be protected. But I appreciate you guys allowing me to be on. And this was fun, good memories. keep doing what you're doing. Keep highlighting, former Mountaineers. And I'm sure this show, Greg mentioned it already, it has millions of followers. It's going to grow even more so now because of who you're bringing on the show.
That's right.
Well, Grantis, thank you so much. We can't tell you again how much we appreciate having you. It's been a blast. It's been fun to hear some of these things and some of these stories, and then to get to know some things about not always something you pay attention to, and as a sports fan, but things you'd like to know, but you never know who to ask, and it's awesome that you can come on and share some of that with us. We look forward to watching you in your games in the future. Know that. South Florida, the school's got a good one, and as we have said over and over again, we're so impressed by what's happened after your career at WVU. It's amazing to watch and to see these things happen. You guys are fantastic, and again, thanks for taking some time to join us. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, great, Grantis, Bell, and Frank. I tell you, looking back, this was back in my heyday when I was a season ticket holder and going. He was a baller. He was a baller. I loved watching him, and these guys, especially during that time frame. I got out of college in '84, so I started going to games regularly, 85, 86, 87, 88, all the way up through the '90s, and some of these names stand out, and he's definitely one that stands out because he was a player.
Yeah, I mean, he's so impressive, and it's just that we were talking about those 80 players in particular. I mean,
oh gosh,
I never thought about it, but the way that Grantis put it in terms of the role that Rich Rod was on, just that one blip, it shows you how much of an impact one football game can have, and how it can have an impact that's profoundly unexpected. I can remember watching that game in a Chicago bar when Pitt came up, and I was telling people this is going to be an easy one, and just my eyes popping out when it didn't go the Mountaineers' way, and before you know it, the world now looks very different. But that happens in life, and so as a consequence, you just have to go with the roll and the flow. But yeah, he's very impressive, and we're so pleased that he took the time to be with us. We got other things going in Mountaineer sports, and
Frank, before you go any further, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. More fun to watch NFL now. We can find Grantis every week, and I know he's probably still listening. We can scrutinize, criticize. We'll write it up, and we'll get him back on the show then next February, and we'll go over some of these things with him and see if we can help him out a little bit.
Yeah, I could see you with the chalkboard behind you, and basically doing the plays.
I used to tell officials all the time that I was right there on the sideline. I could see everything. If they needed my help, all they had to do was ask. I'm right there and tell them exactly what they need to call.
There you go. Well, I'll tell you what. The guy is to my looking at the screen. He's to the left there, to your right, but left on the screen. Well, actually, it's the right on the screen as you're looking at it. It's fans. Called me up after that tremendous comeback against the University of Central Florida when it looked like the Mountaineers were, as they said, dead and buried. And my God, it just flipped. The switch just flipped. Wasn't that a great game?
Oh, my gosh. And, Frank, and I think we texted this afterwards, and I've said it over and over, when you play good defense, you got a chance. And, you look at the scores of these games, and when you hold teams to 24 points, I know people were complaining we only scored 20 in the first half. That's right. Second half they only scored 24, and if you can do just a little bit offensively, you got a chance to win these games. And they play really good defense. Even the games that they've lost for the most part have been very low scoring, which means good defense for the most part. And they've been in those games, and they finally started making some shots. Once they made some shots, it was the comeback was on, and they looked great that second half, and that's what they're capable of. So you play good defense, you got a shot.
And they're going to tip off before too long. I think 8:30 against Utah, 10.5 point favorites, and but they've got a tough road to hoe. That the TCU on Saturday, Oklahoma State on Tuesday, so they got a 2-game road trip coming up, and
Yeah.
then they come back and play BYU, Kansas State. What a mess at Kansas State!
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And
I
then
think I saw
close
where
at
Kansas
home.
State had
Yeah,
maybe won a couple of games after getting rid of their coach. Somebody had told me. I happen to know one of the players played with my son at Wheeling,
yeah, I
and
remember that.
yeah, and he transferred to Kansas State, and my son had talked to him about this coach. He just got fired, but since then, I think things have improved. But yeah, that's a mess right there right now. Hard to believe it's fallen off so fast,
Yeah,
so bad so quickly. So
yeah.
yeah, hopefully,
Well,
hopefully that'll stay in place until we get done with them.
yeah, we got to play
I
them
wish
there,
them bad luck.
unfortunately. Yeah, that is a tough place to play. I've been there.
Yep.
But the thing is, Skylar Callahan said, at least predicted a couple of weeks ago, to get in the NCAA, probably 22 wins. But what I'm seeing now is that the Mountaineers have made not the first team out, 4 teams out, but the second group of 4, which they
Yeah.
weren't there before. God willing, they'll beat Utah tonight. TCU is going to be a tough climb.
Yeah.
The women found that out the other night. Tough place to play, relatively small facility, but really a lot of good players. But it's going to be tough. The odds are that unless they do really, really well in the tournament, Big 12 tournament, they're going to be NIT bound. But we'll keep our fingers crossed. Now, I don't know if you saw this; it just came across the wire. The Texas Tech lost Toppin for the year. He was hurt.
Oh, no.
Yep, he's out for the year. He was
no.
hurt against all teams. They lost to Arizona State after they beat Arizona.
After beat Arizona.
And without Toppin, they're they're going to be limited because this guy is an NBA pro playing in college. But we'll just keep our fingers crossed. The women, 4, 5, 6 seed, probably a 5 seed. They if you look at the roster, I don't know if you saw the TCU game the other night. That team has a lot of talent. Obviously, we know the Texas schools have a lot of money, particularly TCU and Tech and Baylor, that they're putting behind their schools, their players, their sports. And if I'm not correct, I don't think I'm wrong. They have, I think, 3 players on that team, the TCU women, that are 6'6" or taller.
Wow.
And so, and they've got it was tough. Women played well. I thought they might be able to take it, but TCU women came out second half and just blitzed them in the third quarter. But anyway.
Yep. Just have to keep our fingers crossed. And I really think if the men could pull off a game or two, if they could get to that 20-win plateau and win a game in the tournament, I think they're in. I mean, if you look at the resume and I've said this, Frank, from day one, that Big 12, I'm telling you what, it's a grind week after week, and there's very few. There's not any pushovers, if you will. Where feel like going in. Now, not going to mention any of the teams' names, but when we were in the Big East, I mean, there were a few games in there where you just knew we were going to win. And it's not like that in the Big 12, and that's a tough conference. And if you can win, if you win 20 games and win a game in the conference tournament, that says a lot about your team. And I really think if we could do that, but if a frog had pockets, he'd keep rocks in it to keep snakes from eating him. So ifs and buts, and that's going to be hard to do because that schedule is not real favorable. But I see where they could win 3, 4, of what's left. They could win 3 more of them, and if they play like they're capable. But I'll say this: if their offense don't, if these guys don't start hitting some shots regularly, it's going to be a problem. I mean, you can't depend on coming back in the second half and scoring 45 points and winning. They've got to get more consistent offensively, and I don't know at this point of the year if that's even to get consistent as possible right now. Now it can get better, obviously, but I don't know if consistent would be in that in that threshold. But I still have faith. I still feel like we can get on a little run, win a few games, get above 20, and maybe get in. Who knows? We'll see.
Well, if they win tonight, they'll be 17-9. They're 16-9 now. The two big mountains to climb, so to speak, is at TCU on Saturday,
right,
and BYU at home. BYU is good.
Yes.
They're in there. If West Virginia can beat TCU and BYU, I think they'd go all the way from next four out into the last four in.
Yeah.
They'd leapfrog a lot of teams. There's a big if there, because they should beat Kansas State, biggest word in sports. They should beat Kansas State at Manhattan, and then UCF at home. Of course, UCF is going to be rare and mad after. That was a good team. That really was a good team. So so anyway, and the baseball team opened with a sweep. That was a lot of fun to watch them. They've got some really good pitchers, really good hitters. We're all going to have to watch a bit more to get comfortable with the names and everything, but that's the beauty of ESPN Plus. They're at Liberty this weekend for 3 games, again on the road, and that let's just see how the Mountaineers do. They look like they've got a lot of talent, and I don't know if you saw the second game of the series. Mickey was talking about the infield and how good they were last week. That was a bang play where Georgia Southern had the bases loaded. Bottom of the 9th, guy hits the ball right to the shortstop, and he threw that ball right into the mid about a half a step. That would have tied the game because the runner for third would have scored. But it was upheld on review. And that's great to see that kind of moxie right at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Well, and I was lucky enough, I got to watch the first 2 games, and the first game they were really struggling at the plate. First half of the game couldn't get anything going, and we're trailing. Most probably four or 5 innings that we're trailing, and then bats got going, and they just rolled them that first game. And I thought, man, this looks really familiar for last year, the way they hit the ball. But I think their defense is pretty solid, and it'll be fun to watch them. I enjoy watching them now, and that program there, it's I know baseball don't get the same attention as football does, but that's on one of these Indiana scales, not quite to that level, but you go from the program we were to the program we've become over the last 4 or 5 years. Pretty impressive, and now heck of a lot of fun to watch them play.
Yeah, Matt Graveline started with just a great opening series, and I'm trying to remember David Perez, freshman out of Philadelphia, came in 9th inning the other day, and my God, he just baffled those guys. He looks like he's going to be a hell of a closer for the Mountaineers. For a freshman, I mean, he's not big, but he's got a mid-90s fastball, seems to have a lot of movement on it, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
It'll be fun to watch.
So one of the things we talked about earlier today that we should just say a few words about, I don't know about you, I probably can predict this. Neither one of us have much tolerance from this conference reorganization stuff, but the craziness has started again. Northern Illinois University has left the MAC, Mid-America Conference, and they've joined the Mountain West. I've been to DeKalb, Illinois. I think the closest mountain is about 1,500 miles. And to make things even more ludicrous, the MAC invited, drum roll please, Sacramento State to be a football playing member. And of course, Sacramento State is near Indianapolis. And so, can you believe that? Sacramento State from Sacramento, California, is now going to be playing the University of Buffalo, Massachusetts, and Kent State. Can you imagine what that bill's going to look like?
This gets crazier and crazier, don't it? And looking at this as a, like you mentioned earlier, the news, the Big 12, ACC, I guess merger, if you will. Frank, I don't know, something things are going to happen. I mean, things are going to change. We know that, but it's just there's just got to be somewhere along the line some common sense about all this, and it's got to quit being about how much money can we rake in,
Exactly.
and it yeah, you look at that, oh, it looks great, yeah, but you got you're going to have 20, what was it, 20, I forget how many teams in there, um, and all over the country. Why even have conferences? If it's going to come to
Yeah.
this, what's the point? And because of course, the SEC and the Big Ten will just grow theirs as well and pluck whoever they want. So, what's the point of even doing this if it's going to be spread out like this, and there's really no conference, alignment as far as rivalry games or proximity, anything like that. I mean, you just mentioned Sacramento State going to the MAC. I mean, come on, why bother? And so I don't know what's going to change. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how serious. You hear a lot of these things. This one's getting a lot of coverage. A lot of talk. Um, but again, a lot of this is politics, and we see it happen every day on the national level. Distractions and throwing things out there and seeing what sticks. Uh, Throwing something out there to get a reaction. Throw it out there to get a distraction from something else. I mean, you don't know what this is for sure, and it's I don't know. I looked at that and just it hurts my head to look at it. You just get so frustrated, just like whatever. Let's just get this fixed.
Well, you're right. I mean, to me, they're just chasing after their tails, and the tail is
Yeah.
money. And we can't, the feeling is, well, we can't compete with the Big Ten and SEC by ourselves. And so what we'll do is we'll combine. But nobody that I know is talking about 37 teams in a
Right.
complete merger. They're talking about 20, 20, 22, 24 teams, which means a whole bunch of teams that are now in power
Right.
conferences will
Right.
lose. The one thing
Yeah.
that West Virginia has going for it with West Virginia and Pitt, if they're in this thing, if it happens, is that the Pittsburgh metropolitan area,
Right.
and also the thing that in fact, if you have that slide, Darren, if you could put that slide up, there's one column that you see the far right column, social media. People look at that because those are eyeballs. If you look down, West Virginia, because of alphabetical order, is uh, is all the way down at the bottom, and you'll see that it has one of the highest social media followings,
Yep.
um, with almost over 800,000. But I don't think, now that I look at it, I don't think Pitt is included on this chart.
Yeah, I don't think
This
so
is
either.
from this is from at College Football Signals, Chris Lambert, that you can find on X. You'll find this chart, but it's like, so Pitt's no longer a major college, a power team. And Let me see, I didn't even count out the number of Big 12 teams there. The first three are Big 12 teams, but not all of the Big 12 teams are there either. Is Houston on there? I don't see Houston on there. I don't
Nope.
see SMU on there.
Nope. I think the
Clemson's
thing,
not there.
what
Clemson's there.
confused us a little bit on the pit was West Virginia, where it has the demographics laid out there with the city. It's got Pittsburgh, as the city uh, there with West Virginia. So that kind of threw me. I thought Pitt was on there, but that is the city they're counting for Morgantown.
That's right.
For our area, our
That's
metropolitan
right.
area.
That's right.
So
But
yeah. I don't know what the plans are for those guys.
Cale's not there. Stanford is not there. I don't know. I don't know. It's just you're right. Anyway, we'll just have to keep on with it. But and we know, and rightfully so, a lot of people are interested in this, and it's being covered very, very well by other shows. And we
Yeah.
decided, for those who are watching, we would just mention at the end of the show, and
Yep. Yep. Yep.
that's it. But
Yep, just mention it because it's out there, and everybody needs to be aware that if you're a college fan, you think this is over, it ain't over. There's a
that's right.
long way to go, and a lot of stuff going to happen between now and then. So
That's right.
we'll just have to wait. Speaking of now and then,
Yeah.
all right. Well, Frank, we're out of time here, obviously, a little bit overtime, but it's been well worth it. Next week, another fantastic guest, another great player for the Mountaineers, Jock Sanders. And again, people my age remember him well, and he's a great football player. Was a great football player. Looks like coaching now. Maybe we'll find out more about his.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
Actually,
a
yep,
head
he
coach.
is.
Okay, yeah. So we'll find out more about all that next week. That'll be a lot of fun as well, and a lot of fun tonight talking to Grantis Bell. We appreciate him. What an interesting story, and you know, that kind of stuff is just fun to talk about and to hear about and to learn about, and that's always fun to do and impressive as well. And Frank, one last thing, before we sign off, Mike and his family, we are thinking of them, and Mark Parsons. We appreciate Mark for all the hard work he puts into this, and all the guests that he gets for us, and we'll be getting Mark on again before too long, I'm sure. We appreciate him, but we want to make sure that Mike knows we're thinking about him and the family as well. So with that, Frank, if there's nothing further to say.
Well, all I'll say is, and I know you will join me in this, and so will Mickey and Mark, we're all better people having known
Absolutely.
Mike Dunlap.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.